Testing 1, 2, 3. Right. Hi, everyone. We're just bringing Derek on right now. Hi
Hello.
there.
Hey, Jan.
Can
How's
you
it
hear me
going?
okay?
I can, kind of. Yeah, it was. There's a little bit of a lag there, it seemed like, but
There might be a delay for sure. It's just something we'll have to
all right.
deal with.
Sure.
All
All
right.
right.
All right.
Yeah,
Well,
I haven't even haven't been on Instagram actually ever, so this is my debut.
very cool. Well, I have never gone live with another person. This is my first interview. The other weeks I've done it, it's just me talking the whole time. So this is really exciting for me.
All right, cool.
So you are in a garage or something. Where are you?
I'm in my basement, my kind of office slash kids playroom with all their fun little kitchen
Cool.
stuff and toys.
All right.
Yeah.
Do you have any unfinished projects there?
Yes, the basement's one of them. Yep, we're getting ready to do the kitchen. I think next month. So yeah,
Very
yeah,
good. Yeah, it's probably one of those things that like that's the last thing that gets attention, right? Because you're
yeah.
working on other people's stuff.
hmm And then having the kids in the house makes construction a little challenging. But
For sure.
yeah,
Cool. Well, I think we'll get started because we got a few people on here, and we'll just let the rest of them trickle in. And if anybody out there has any questions, feel free to type them in the comments, and we'll work the questions in. But first things first, how do you pronounce your last name?
it is. It's Mienkwic.
Mienkwic.
Mienkwic. Yeah. So it's
Okay.
Polish. It looks a little more difficult than it sounds, I think. But yeah,
No, that's super easy. Okay. Thank you.
yeah.
All
No.
right, Derek Mienkwic of Apex Home Inspections. Can you tell me a little bit about yourself? Maybe, what you do, what brought you to Michigan, anything you'd like to share, and then we'll get into questions about home inspections.
Sure. Yeah, so I'm originally from Michigan, from Flint. I grew up in Flint. Uh, Moved away for a while from, I lived in northern Michigan, Denver, and then Hawaii for some time. And we ended up back here 3 years ago and started doing home inspections in 2016 in Hawaii. And have been a builder, though, pretty much my whole life. Since I was a teenager, I started framing and roofing and all the other residential construction trades. Um, but yeah, ended up back here about 3 years ago. Moved to St. Clair Shores and got the home inspection business going out here in Michigan.
Any regrets leaving Hawaii?
Most days, yeah, like
Most
today.
days in January.
Yep, definitely. We miss Hawaii a lot, and yeah, I think we have hopefully a big picture plan of maybe moving back there someday. But for now, Michigan's home.
Good. Well, we're glad to have you back in the mitten.
Yeah, it's good to be here.
Um, so my first time meeting you, I think the first time we interacted was I had a specific question about sewer inspections, on whether my client should get a sewer inspection on a brand new construction house. And so that's how we ended up getting you out to the property to inspect the sewer. And that started the beginning of, me, recommending you to my clients as an inspector. So we kind of worked together, maybe, I would say probably on at least almost 10, maybe transactions, I think. So
Yeah,
yeah.
I definitely appreciate the referrals and every time I hear that you referred me, that definitely makes me happy. And uh, must be doing. I hope I'm doing a good service for your clients. So
Yeah, for sure. Well, I think something that's really attractive to them is the home inspection and sewer inspection at the same
sure,
time. You don't have to bring in a separate person. I think that is usually what, because you're on my list of home inspectors and sewer inspectors. Like, I don't recommend anybody. You're on the list, but I think you're probably on the top of the list. So I think that usually does it. So.
sure, yeah, and I understand that. Yeah, definitely. I guess there's a little bit of a conflict of interest if you're recommending one person, but it's nice that I'm on that list of people, and seems that they call me pretty often. So
Yeah.
I'm grateful
Yeah.
for that.
I just tell people these are inspectors that my clients have used and who have been happy with. And, and I haven't received any complaints. So that's usually how I do it. So let's start with a home inspection. What is the purpose of a home inspection? Like, why should you get one?
Purpose of a home inspection is to allow someone, I guess, a third party unbiased opinion on what the actual condition of the home is. Hopefully, that person has some knowledge about the building process, and want to make sure that they're well informed on this big purchase, this decision that is one of the biggest of our lives. That they're making a well informed decision on this house.
And so what kind of things do you look at and what kind of things do you not look at in an inspection?
Sure. Well, look at most things. I'd say I cover anything that's visible and that I can get access to safely. So I'd say we cover everything from the foundation to the roof and in between. Um, I would say maybe some of the things we don't get into are maybe costs and values of things because we're not really entitled to do that and make that decision. That would be more on an appraiser or a realtor. But we're looking mostly at the condition of the home itself structurally, as well as any type of maintenance or issues that someone might encounter.
Okay. So I know home inspectors are also looking at things like sewer. A lot of times you call an inspection company, they want to sell you like a radon test. And what do you offer other types of inspections, or like what other types, mold tests? And, are those all things that are in your wheelhouse also?
Yes, do offer radon testing, sewer inspection. I can do mold testing. Oftentimes, if I see something that appears to be mold, uh, there's a good likelihood that it probably is. I'm not qualified to say whether it is or not without having, the item tested. But typically, if we come into an issue where there's mold, I like to recommend that they have a mold remediator or a professional come and save that money versus having it tested sometimes. But yeah, most of the inspections I do are kind of your general home inspection, and then drain inspections, a very popular one, especially in older homes, and then radon depending on the area. I know definitely pockets of Oakland County, Washtenaw County have higher levels of radon than say some areas of like Metro Detroit or the Detroit area.
So just so people in the audience know, what is radon? What is the purpose of testing it? Like, why is it important to understand if it's in your basement?
Sure. Yeah, radon is so it's a naturally occurring gas. It is odorless and colorless. You would never know that it's in the home. It's found in the soil, so it works its way through the soil and up through the basement floor of the home, or any cracks or voids in the floor in it, such as like where your sump pump is, and so that gas would then enter the home, and over time it can develop into lung cancer. So it is one of the leading causes of lung cancer. And without testing, you don't know what those levels in the home are. And as I said, throughout the country, the levels found in the soil are different throughout different areas of the country and in the state, and it does move through the soil. So you may have radon tests done, this year, and 2 years later, you have it tested, and the levels could be different. So it's definitely a good idea to have that, have it tested, especially in areas that are known for having higher levels of radon. And once they do come back, if you do have a higher than normal test come back, which is the allowable amount of radon before requiring a mitigation system is 4 picocuries, which is, I don't understand exactly what a picocurie is, but it is a unit of measure that if it does exceed beyond that 4 parts per million, then they recommend adding a radon mitigation system in the home. And once that mitigation system is installed, which is essentially a PVC pipe that goes down into the floor under the house, and it has a fan in line of that draws that gas up and through the home out to the exterior and dispels it to the atmosphere where it's harmless. So once that system is installed, the house is deemed safe for occupancy then.
So we just had our first question in from Nick, so thank you, and keep the questions coming. But he just wanted to know, is Hazel Park an area that's traditionally low in radon from your experience?
I do not get a lot of requests. Let's see, Hazel Park is kind of on the edge. I would say, Royal Oak, I do get more requests, especially when you get further towards Birmingham or some of the areas out that way. Hazel Park particularly, I don't get a ton of requests for radon over there. Not necessarily meaning that it's a lower level, but I do believe it's in the median range as far as radon goes.
And I think it's most important, from what I understand, if you're going to be spending a lot of time in your basement, right? Like if you're just using it for storage, is it as important to mitigate or test or anything?
To my knowledge, yes, because it does spread throughout the home. It enters through the basement, but that radon does actually make it up into the living areas on the first or even second floor. So.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah. Now those levels may be a little, yeah, yeah. So yeah, it's not confined to the basement necessarily. I'd imagine that the levels maybe in the upper portions of the house may come back a little less than the basement, though.
Okay. Okay. All right. So, what should you expect when you attend a home inspection? Like what is the process like? Are you, is the buyer involved in the process? Like ideally, like how does that go for you during like an inspection process? Like walk us through what happens during an inspection.
So once I arrive, I like to start on the outside of the home. Typically, if the client is going to be there, I'll introduce myself, go over, what the process is, what are we looking at, and they are welcome to join. It's been a little bit weird this year with COVID, so we've kind of been limited in the amount of time that we spend together in the home, and also the amount of people that come to the inspections. I'd say pre-COVID, it wasn't uncommon, especially for a first-time home buyer, to have the entire family to show up, and uncle who's a contractor maybe. So it's been a little different this year. But as far as the process goes, we're walking through, looking at all the exterior components of the home first, then going inside the home. The client is welcome to join and observe or ask any questions. And I do have kind of a set path that I stay on during the inspection, just so that I don't miss anything. But we'll go through, start in the upstairs of the home in the attic, and work our way all the way down to the basement where we typically finish. And the reasons for that, a few reasons are related to plumbing. I like to start in the very top of the home, running the water throughout the entire inspection, and that way, typically by the time we end up in the basement, if there have been any issues with plumbing leaks or drain problems, then that gives them a chance to present themselves. But we're looking at everything from the mechanical system, electrical system, plumbing, foundation, roof, and any typical homeowner maintenance type issues. And during the inspection, I use a report writer that compiles all the photos and comments that I take during the inspection, and so that all goes into the report. When the homeowner gets that report, or the potential homeowner gets that report at the end of the inspection, now they have a very detailed report on the condition of the home, and that also does play a part in helping them to maybe have a checklist for things that they need to repair once they do get inside of the home.
So we just had a question come in from Sabra. Thanks, Sabra. Just wanting to know, can a home inspector do a detailed inspection of a furnace, or does that have to, ideally go to a specialist? Like,
Sure. So as far as the furnace is concerned, I would say it's more of a general inspection of the furnace and its components. We don't dig too far into it aside from taking the cover off, visually inspecting it for function and any kind of obvious issues with safety, such as the venting or any signs of backdrafting or cracked heat exchanger. So there are definitely signs and things that we're looking for in the furnace. But as far as if it gets beyond more of a general knowledge type of information, or if there is an issue with the furnace, I always recommend having a qualified HVAC technician look at that.
do you also do a carbon monoxide test as well?
I do have a carbon monoxide detector on me that's always on.
Mm-hmm.
So if I've only had a few instances where it has been triggered, because but I am always aware, though, when I'm near the furnace or any appliance that's got combustion where there's that potential for carbon monoxide. I am always checking that carbon monoxide tester, though, when I'm inspecting a furnace or water tank.
Okay. So how what criteria should somebody use when choosing a home inspector? What should they be looking for? What kinds of questions should they be asking? How do they know they have a good or a capable or a qualified inspector?
I would probably start off by asking for, maybe trying to find recommendations from somebody that that's used an inspector that they like or recommend is a good place to start. Or if you're a member of a group like the Metro Detroit Real Estate Investors, I know
Shout
they're,
out to the
yeah,
group.
that's one of the best Facebook groups out there. And I definitely have received a lot of business through that group, and made a lot of friends. So yeah, good place to go, somewhere like that. Aside from that, unfortunately in the state of Michigan, there is no licensing requirement
I was
for.
going to ask you about that. Yeah, it's all voluntary, right?
Yeah, so right now there is no requirement or licensing for home inspectors in this state. So you do have to be careful of that, because basically anybody can claim to be a home inspector. They do have a couple of recognized schools for home inspection. Two of the main are ASHI, which is the American Society of Home Inspectors, and the other is InterNACHI. And those are kind of the two main schools for home inspection certification. I do have an InterNACHI certification, and that's a good place to start as far as knowing that they have a formal education in home inspection. So I would kind of start with some of those places, and beyond that, does the inspector have experience maybe in construction or some of those type fields? There are a lot of inspectors that maybe only have the formal education, and that's great. There's nothing wrong with that. But I do feel that somebody with more kind of hands-on experience may have a little better understanding of how the home is built and put together, and maybe have a better understanding of what to look for in a home.
Well, and I think that is why you have some great insight during your inspections, because you not only know what to point out what's wrong, but you also know what the solution would be to make it right, especially with some structural. And I feel like maybe a home inspector who's just trained on what to look for that's wrong maybe doesn't have, not enough knowledge to tell you, well, this is what you should do, or this is how you should fix this, or these are the things that, this is the kind of person you want to call for that.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Got a couple questions that have come in. Sabra, thank you again. So I'll take your second one first. So as far as new construction, people think it's brand new, there's nothing wrong with it. Is it necessary to inspect? When is it necessary to inspect? Like, what kinds of things are potentially going to be wrong in a new construction property?
Yeah, I would say definitely a good idea to have new construction inspected. I think the common thought is it's brand new. It doesn't need to be inspected. Everything's new and, in great condition. I would say the most common things that I run into in new construction are things that are unfinished. So oftentimes I've seen maybe plumbing venting that's not been installed, or different items that aren't finished on the installation, like the dishwasher not being properly installed, or even things down to drain fittings. I've turned on plumbing in brand new construction and had all of the plumbing fixtures leaking because they didn't tighten down the screws on the drains, or the drain connections. So even the installation of brand new sewer drain systems. I have looked at brand new PVC drains that were improperly installed and back graded and weren't draining properly at all. I have one example of an investor in Detroit that I know who paid a company to come out and install a brand new drain system, and he had me come to do the inspection afterwards to make sure that everything was correct. And they had actually put the drain in the ground, and they never connected it to the city main, and it was just basically flowing into a hole in the ground. So, I would say that, yeah, new construction is still a good idea to have a home inspection.
And as far as do you think it's a good idea to have the inspector out during the build process instead of just coming at the very end? Should the buyer be scheduling multiple visits by the home inspector?
It's not a bad idea. I don't get that request often. I do have occasional progress inspections that I do for people during the construction process. So I would say that, yeah, it's not a bad idea, because then you can hopefully get ahead of, maybe if there are some issues that are coming about during construction, if we can catch them before, say, the walls are closed up, or you get too far along in the process that it could get pretty expensive later to remedy those situations. So yeah, it's not a bad idea to do that.
So, and I think just as a note to all the agents that are out there, that's something that you're going to need to write into your purchase agreement, because the builder is not necessarily just going to allow your inspector to come in it just whenever you want. You need to sort of build that in, so everybody's on the same page. Like, inspector has to come in before the drywall goes up or something like that, and then once again at the end. Okay. Thank you for all the questions, everybody. There was another question about sewer inspections, and you just made a really good point. But in a house, maybe there's not a brand new sewer, but it's a functioning house, people are living in it. Is it always necessary to do a sewer inspection?
I wouldn't. That's a hard question to say necessary, because the thing is with the drains, we never know. We can always guess what we think the condition is. Oh, the drains, they're all running. Nothing's backing up. There's no trees in the yard. We can look for all these telltale signs of, possible drain issues, but they don't always present themselves. You can get into the drain, and if there's a collapse in the pipe, you may not know it for years until there's maybe a void in the yard where that eventually has settled. So yeah, I would say you never really know without running a camera down the drain to be 100% certain.
Yeah, I always say that that's the biggest ticket item in the house that the inspector can't see with their naked eyes. So
Hmm.
spend the $150 or whatever and
Yeah,
have that peace of mind.
I would say definitely worth it. Even myself, the very first real estate deal that I, as an investor, got into was beginning of, it was actually 1 year ago, and purchased a home from a wholesaler and didn't do a drain inspection because I just wanted to get in and get this home, and didn't do the drain inspection myself and end up having to replace it. And yeah, very expensive item. So for that $150 you could potentially save 10,000 or more dollars. I would
Hmm.
say your typical city lot is going to run you somewhere between 3 to 5,000. But sometimes if you've got a deeper lot, or if that drain goes, say, into the road or across the neighbor's property, I mean, it could get really expensive.
Definitely. Okay, a couple other questions that are coming in. So, Carlton, not really sure what you're asking, so maybe you want to rephrase your question. Saber wanted to know if there is stuff wrong in the house during the inspection. Can you give an estimate on what the buyer should expect for it to cost, or can you refer to qualified people that can take care of that? Like, how do you normally handle stuff like that? I don't think you like to tell people what things should cost. You like to give a
Yeah,
range.
yeah, I do, and I kind of, as a uh, generally, I would say I don't tend to like to give numbers like that, because someone could take that and get a higher quote, or it could end up being more, and then now they're looking at the home inspector saying, well, you said it would cost this and it costs more, and now you're kind of liable for making those claims. um, I think it kind of depends on the client and what their level of experience is, and maybe you know how, I guess, how that conversation is going, whether or not I feel comfortable giving some figures on those things. I do think that my numbers are pretty accurate as far as the ballpark figures I can provide for most repair items in the home. So we are not really supposed to give numbers. No, I typically would rather recommend that to a contractor, and they can give a price.
But if, let's say, a buyer, you told them this needs to be repaired, and they went and got a quote, they could maybe run it by you and say, does this seem kind of in line with what I should be paying?
Yeah,
Does this seem like the correct scope for me to proceed? That's something that you could give them feedback on.
sure. Yeah, and I don't mind that at all. And I definitely, I don't go into the process with my guard up. I don't want to feel like I've got to uh, kind of dance around things. I'd rather just be open and honest about the condition of the home, and if people want some feedback on what it could possibly cost to repair items, like I said, occasionally I'll give that information, and I can give them a good idea if they're in the range of some accurate numbers.
Thanks. Okay, so we got a couple more questions about sewer lines. So, question: most drain lines, or at least in Detroit, are clay. Unless they've been replaced with PVC. And then there's Orangeburg, that's kind of like out in the Ann Arbor area, that's like cardboard. Can you
Yeah.
just kind of speak to different types of sewer lines?
Sure. Yeah. So yeah, Detroit, the most common and that we see around Metro Detroit is going to be your clay crock or clay tile, which is a 6-inch clay tile that they're just dry fit together in sections, and those are the most notorious, I would say, for having issues with tree roots and things like that, because those tree roots can easily get through the drain connect or the pipe connections in those fittings. Um, that's probably the most common that we have in this area. And inside of the home is typically cast iron until it gets beyond the home into the yard, and then it converts to clay tile. That's the usual thing we'd see out here. Yeah, Ann Arbor, Washtenaw County, you see more of the Orangeburg. Like you said, it's kind of a combination of like cardboard.
Oh, lost your audio for a second. Can you say that again? We lost your
Oh,
audio.
are you there?
Yep. I lost your audio. Can you say that again?
Yeah, sorry about that. I just had a call coming. um, so yeah, I think we're talking about Orangeburg, and the composition of Orangeburg is basically like cardboard and tar, and it's primarily I see it most in Ann Arbor, Washtenaw area, and I don't do a lot of inspections out that way right now, but kind of starting to work towards maybe it. But typically, yeah, what we see is cast iron and clay tile out this way.
So if the line has not failed, would you recommend replacement, or what are the signs that something like just needs to be replaced?
Yeah, the as long as the drain's in decent condition, the pipe is intact. There's no cracks or breakages, slip, any issues like that, or an abnormally large amount of tree roots. Uh, I would say more often than not, I do see tree roots in those type of drains, and usually that can be snaked and cleaned out. But it is a maintenance issue at that point. Uh, Depending on the severity of it, it could be anywhere from every 6 months to a year that you'd want to have it snaked out again, just to keep those drains flowing clear.
What if a drain line has a belly? Is that a reason to replace it, or is that still okay?
Belly, it definitely can be cause for concern. A belly in the pipe is typically going to take some time before that becomes a real issue. It could take several years before that area of the pipe becomes damaged or degraded. It can also cause backups and blockages. So I would say, depending on the severity of the belly, you may want to consider replacing or repairing that area. If it's a slight belly, which I would say more drains than not, I do see some slight bit of that going on in there. But as long as the drain is running free, and that belly's not collecting any water or debris, or causing any corrosion or decay to that pipe, then not necessarily something that you have to dig up. But if it's a pretty bad one, you may want to do that.
And just for everybody, a belly is just like a low spot where the drain has like sort of sunk, and it usually can hold water. Is that
Correct?
okay?
Yeah. And normally that's something during the installation. Maybe they didn't prep the ground sufficiently, and so as the years have caused that to settle and compact, and then you get that belly in the drain.
Okay, so Nick, I'm going to come back to your question because we're off on a tangent about sewer lines, which is great. But David is asking about the notorious sewer trap.
Oh yeah, the trap.
Yes, the trap. So explain what a trap is. David wants to know, can your sewer camera get beyond the trap, and then what are the options if like beyond that?
Yeah, the house trap, notorious for Detroit. Not trap house, it is house trap. So it's too clear. But the house trap is it's similar to like a P trap that you would see on a fixture, like your sink, or really any plumbing fixture has a trap in it. That trap's designed to it holds water and blocks gas from coming back through the drain line, methane gas. So back in the day, they decided it was a great idea to put these house traps in. It's a bit redundant now because we have traps on all of our fixtures. Back in the early turn of the century, I don't think that was the case. So with these house traps, that's usually where we would enter the drain for an inspection. It's a clean out in the floor typically. That trap goes down underneath of the concrete floor in the basement, and they're usually it could be about 3 feet or so down into the ground. We've had to dig them out of actually a house that I have, and so by replacing that, it makes it a lot easier to get through the drain. As you can imagine, it's a big U basically, and in that U, and I wish I had a picture one in front
Kind
of
of
me I
like
could show you.
a,
Yeah,
yeah.
so it's a big U, and as that camera goes down and through it, it has a hard time making the turn, and it tends to hit the wall of the pipe, and it is difficult to get through those. The camera that I have is a smaller camera, so uh, sometimes I can get through them. I would say it's kind of hit or miss, though. I would say I get through probably roughly 60% of the traps. Um, so yeah, I recommend removing them if at all possible, just for ease of maintenance of the drain. Um, there's actually only one person that I know of that has created a device to get through those traps, but everyone that I've referred to him has said that he's so busy that he can't get to them. So
I think that's Josh. Is that Josh Dutton?
yes, yeah,
Okay, yeah. Um, so great to be able to remove the trap after you own the house, but what are the options for having more confidence in the condition of the drain if you can't get through the trap and you don't, and you don't own the house yet?
sure, yeah. That's a difficult one because without being able to get through that trap, you really don't know. Um, we can look at some of the other factors that, such as like, are the drains in the house all flowing freely? Are they backing up? Are there any large trees in the yard? Um, Looking for any kind of evidence of any backups where maybe the drains have backed up into the basement floor before. So we can look for telltale signs that there may be an issue, but without being able to get through the trap, you're really taking a gamble on it.
So what about the idea to come back with like just the snake? Because I know those can make it through the traps. Like it's not going to give you 100% confidence, but at least you can see if you can get off. If you're stopped at some point in the on the
Sure.
line, you know that there's a problem, or if you make it all the way, to the city sewer, is it's not
Yeah.
100%, but it's more, right? It's
Yeah.
more confidence.
Absolutely. I would say that the snake at least gives you the understanding whether the drain is blocked or not. And typically, if there are a lot of roots, when they pull that snake back, you're going to see some evidence of those roots. So um, I think that would give you at least some level of you know assurance that the drain is flowing, or they're able to get through it.
it's it would give you assurance that it's not collapsed, but not that there is an issue. There's something that could be an issue in the future. You probably wouldn't be able to figure
Right.
that out. So still a little bit of a gamble. Okay. There was a question from Nick a little while ago. He wanted to know about flip houses. Like I think, like he said, like, what are the signs of like a bad flip? Like, how do you know? I think this is maybe from like a home buyer standpoint when you're walking into a flip house, and we've all seen them, these horrible flips. I can tell because of the tile work. That's the first my
Yeah.
spidey sense goes off when the crooked tiles. But what are some things to look for when you're walking into a house as a buyer to think maybe the people in here didn't know what they were doing?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I see that all the time. Unfortunately, that's kind of it's like the people that they should have their picture in Home Depot. Like, don't allow this person in here. Yeah, there unfortunately are a lot of people that want to be a renovator or a home flipper that really should leave that to somebody else. And the telltale signs, yeah, I'm looking at the quality of the craftsmanship like throughout the entire home. So, issues like you said with the tile, that's definitely one. Down to all the trim work, and especially when it comes to electrical or plumbing, we're really looking to make sure those things are safe and properly done. Um, Oh, yeah, I could go on about all the different things people do to houses that they shouldn't. I think, some of the things, especially with the plumbing, uh, they make it so easy for really anybody to be a plumber now with PEX, because it is very easy to install. Uh, and it's fairly straightforward, but I've seen one good example is when they remove all the PEX or the galvanized plumbing from the home. Typically, your electrical system is grounded to that plumbing. And when they remove it, they don't connect the grounding back up. So now you've left the house unprotected without grounding. So there are a lot of things that, aside from just the aesthetics, that can be really dangerous that people do to homes. So, yeah, mostly it's I'd say the craftsmanship is what I'm really looking at.
That's usually like the sign.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's, if things are, you can tell, like you said, right away almost when you come into a place whether they've done a fairly good job or not. So.
Yeah, that backsplash tile is always a dead giveaway.
Yeah.
Okay, so so the role of the realtor, I would be remiss if I didn't ask about that. So, what should the realtor's role be in the home inspections? Is it shut up and get out of the way? Do you mind questions? When are they? Being too intrusive in the process, what do you like to see? What happened during that process? What do you think is the most helpful?
Well, if they could all be like you when you come to the inspection and let me do my job, that would be great. No, I think that definitely having, an agent that is more, understands that you have a job to do and, doesn't interfere too much in that process and gives that respect. I think that's huge. I do have, some agents that you work with that they want to point out how everything is really not a big deal. That's not a big deal. This isn't a big deal. Don't mind that. And I do get some of those type agents that try to downplay things, especially if the client's there. I think that's really, I don't like it when they do that because it kind of undermines, what I'm doing there, I feel like. And
yeah, they're not the expert. Like,
right. And
who are they to say it's not a big deal?
Yeah. And I mean, I've had just the other day where the tile is falling off of the bathroom wall in the shower. And the agent's telling the buyer that they can just take that off and clean it and glue them back on, and it's fine. And I'm like, hey, maybe not. But so, yeah, I think that's a little bothersome when you sometimes get the agent that you can tell they're really just hungry to close the deal and they don't really maybe care about their client's best interest. So you see that occasionally. But I'd say for the most, if the agent comes in, allows access to the house, gives me time to do my job, and then definitely, any questions are welcome, and I want to answer them, and or if they have any insight to the property that may be helpful during the inspection. And yeah, I think for the most part, just allowing me to come in and do the job, and then towards the end, we can kind of go over everything and make sure that we're all on the same page and have an understanding of what the condition is.
Yeah, I think my biggest questions at inspections are usually related to context, like how common is this problem? When the inspector goes, oh, I see it in pretty much every house. I think that gives the buyer a little more comfort than, knowing that they think, it's so things like that. I like to ask questions to like get them to understand like what that means in relationship to, the big picture. And hopefully that'll give them a little bit more understanding, where maybe I feel like there's a lingering unanswered question or something like that. So,
yeah.
So I want to talk about inspecting condos. I get this question a lot because it seems like that's super easy, right? Like, do you even need to inspect a condo? Because you're not looking usually at these, roofs or, so do you need to inspect a condo? What kinds of things are you looking for? And then, do you ever look at the common elements? Like, the buyer's not responsible specifically for the roof of the condominium, but is that something that you would look at to let them know, this is something, the roof is really bad. This is something that's going to be a problem for the association. Like, how are inspecting condos different?
Condos definitely different, considering the HOA typically covers most of the exterior of the property. and common grounds. I do believe that condo inspection is still necessary in that you do own from the paint inside typically. So oftentimes that involves the you're going to have the furnace, water tank, all of your appliances, also the plumbing. So you could still have all of the same issues you have in a home. And as far as the common areas, I do still report on those, the roof, the steps on the exterior, the grading, the drainage. So all the same components that I would look at in a normal home inspection are going to take place during the condo. And at least if say there is an issue in a common area, they have that knowledge that they can now take and put in a work order with the HOA and make sure these problems are addressed, even if they aren't their responsibility.
And what I think is really cool about one of the toys that you bring along is I think the first time I had clients who were buying a condo and it was maybe like a 4-story building and they were concerned about the roof. So you brought out a little toy. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. I have a drone that I use for some of the bigger stuff or roofs that maybe aren't safe to walk, and that was definitely one of the purchases. It was like, oh, is this really for work or not? But I do use it, fortunately, often for work. And the drone actually, it's got a pretty good camera on it, surprisingly, for as small as the thing is. It's a DJI Mavic Pro 2, so it's kind of a nicer consumer drone, but definitely comes in handy for those rooftops and high areas, and it is kind of a nice thing for the clients. I think they think it's a little impressive sometimes when you got the drone flying around, and they think that is interesting too. But yeah, I've definitely found things with the drone that I wouldn't normally had got a chance to see. So definitely comes in handy.
Yeah, and it's a tool that wasn't available, in the last,
Right.
what, 5 years. They became really cheap, commercially available. So it's really cool that you have the opportunity to use that. So just specifics about like you as an inspector, specifically, like how much notice do you normally need to schedule an inspection? How long does it last? How much does it cost?
Yeah, so home inspection, normally within a couple of days I can get out there. Right now, this time of year, it's surprisingly been very busy up until I would say the last week or two. It's gotten a little bit of a lag, but typically I can get out to a property within a couple of days. If I am unusually busy where it's a week out, maybe that's kind of an exception. With the inspection periods typically are 7 to 10 days at the most. So we always like to try to be as flexible as I can to make sure we can hit those deadlines. And but usually it's within a day or two. As far as the pricing goes, it's based on the square footage. So for most of the residential stuff that's single family, it's going to be $340 up to 1,500 square feet. Anything beyond that would be $100 per 1,000 square feet or within. And then once you get into multifamily, I'm going to have an additional charge on that of $75 a unit. Let's see, drain inspection is $150. With that, you would also get a video of that drain inspection, and radon testing is $155. The radon test has to sit in the home for 2 days to get an accurate reading and sample of the air. So that test was sitting at home for 2 days, and then once I pick it up, you'd have the report then. That's an electronic test that sits in the basement. So those are kind of the most common services that I offer, and pricing related.
How many inspections do you usually do in a day?
Usually two, sometimes three. Three is kind of pushing it though. Yeah. Depending on the home too. I see a a pretty big spectrum of homes. Everything from your typical, $40,000 investor home to, homes, that are much more expensive than that and nicer. And so we get a good range of homes to look at. So.
So yeah, is there anything that you think that I should be asking that we didn't talk about? Like anything that you feel like the general public needs to know about inspections?
Well, just that they should call me for all of their inspections.
And
And,
how do people get a hold of you?
you can reach me. My phone number is 313-400-9058. You can text me, call me. You can also find me at online on Facebook or now at Instagram. And I believe on Facebook it's Apex Inspections MI. And then my website's apexinspectionsmi.com. So you can reach me there as well and schedule inspections online at that website also. But yeah, I guess just very honored and thankful to be your guest here today. And this is definitely a great experience, and look forward to hopefully doing this again. And
Yeah, absolutely. It was a really good conversation. And I think it was really valuable information to have out there. So if anybody is on right now, didn't catch the beginning, this will be on, I think, and for sure it'll be on my IGTV. It'll live on in perpetuity. It'll probably, I think, is on yours too. I think that's how it works. So you can, if you want to catch the rest of it, it'll be there to watch the rest of it. So, all right. Well, thanks so much, everybody, for joining. And thank you, Derek. And see you around at a house sometime soon.
All right. Sounds good. Thanks,
All
guys.
right. Good
Good
night.
seeing you. All right. Have a good one.